In this lesson, we'll fine-tune our streets and then begin differentiating between the different types of terrain on our map. Alright, so in the previous lesson, we applied type to a path to create the street names on our map. And I went ahead and added a few more street names here. Now let me just go ahead and zoom in on this and show you a couple problems here before we proceed. Now, looking here at maybe Dewey Avenue, you can see here that we have the type on one side of the path up here and then on the other side down here, and that relates to where the path begins and where it ends, and which anchor point was put down first. So this is actually something that's really easy to change. All we need to do is choose which orientation we want this to have, and we can grab this center handle here and we can just drag that right across the path and flip it over so that it's oriented the same way as this path up here. Now, I just changed that to the left side of our path, and I'm doing that, and I made that decision based on how this map is going to rotate when we apply our action to it. If this map is going to rotate clockwise, then if the type is on the right-hand side of the path, it's going to appear to be upside down, like this road right here. So, I tell you what we probably should do is go ahead and flip this road as well, here and here. Now, I tell you what, let me come in here now and let's go ahead and show our roads. Now, remember we had this layer hidden here, and we talked about changing the color of our type, and we can actually do that by coming up and modifying our character style. Now, I want to actually do that now because you can see with black roads, our black street names are not really too visible. So let me come up here and just double click on our street names character style. We're going to access the character style options. I'm going to come over here to color, and I tell you what, let's go ahead and change the color of this. You can see over here to the right we have all of the swatches that appear in our swatch panel. So I'm looking for the swatches in that grayscale group, and I'm going to go for about a 20% black fill. So I'm going to select that one right there, and let's just go ahead and hit OK. Now remember, we didn't have every one of these street names with this character style applied to it. Remember this Klassen? It was had that baseline shift, so we need to come in and actually manually apply that swatch here. So let me just come in, manually apply that 20% black swatch. Now, we've got another problem here. If you look here, the street names are all, they're not centered on the path that they're sitting on. So what we need to do is we need to come in and select all of these type paths here that are on our street names layer. So let me just deselect that. I want to click over here, select all that information on that layer. I want to come up here to type, choose type on a path, and then options. And you can see here in this options dialog that opens, the align to path option is set to baseline. That's the default for type on a path. We actually can drop that down and change that to center. And let me go ahead and hit OK on that, and we can see the effect that that has. Alright, so we've centered up our street names, and now this portion of Klassen looks a little bit strange because of the baseline shift. I'm actually going to leave that right now until we have a median to work with there. What I'd like to go ahead and do now is let's go ahead and take the original streets and the paths that they were on this roads layer. Let's go ahead and lock our street names for right now. I'm going to select all of these paths right here, and remember these are stroked paths. And I'm going to come in and expand these paths so they're no longer paths with a stroke applied. They're actually filled shapes. But before you do this, you want to make sure that each one of your street widths is exactly where you want it to be. Now, I think that maybe Klassen Drive maybe even needs to be widened a little bit further. So looking at these paths, let me go ahead and make sure we've got the right layers locked here. And let's go ahead and just increase the stroke weight on this just a little bit more. Right now we're set to 20 points. I'm going to bump that up. Let's go to about 24, maybe 26. Just zoom in here and take a look. I think that might have just been a hair too much. Let me undo that one, and let's go down to 25. And I think that'll work fine. Looking at the size of our street names in relation to the size of the roads, I may actually come in and bump those down a couple point sizes in between lessons, but I can do that again in the character style here. So I tell you what, let me go ahead and select all our roads again here, and I'm going to come up and choose Object, Expand, and you can see here that we have some options. We have a fill and a stroke option here. I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. I know that there is no fill or shouldn't be any fills on any of these shapes I have selected, but they should just be stroked objects. But I'm going to go ahead and combine those here now. Now, look what we got. We've got sort of a mess of shapes here now. So what we need to do is we need to merge all these shapes together. I tell you what, let me go ahead and hide a couple layers so that we can get those out of our way. Let's hide our buildings, and let's hide our street names here. All right, so we've got all these shapes that were created, and we need to merge all these together. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my Shape Builder tool. We can do that with the keyboard shortcut Shift-M, and it's right here in your tool panel. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to begin combining these shapes. I'm just going to draw a line connecting all of these here, and we're going to combine those. Let's go ahead and combine these. Combine those. You can see how fast combining these shapes really is using the Shape Builder tool. Some of these roundabouts have all these little tiny shapes, but we're converging those and merging those into one shape. We have a little bitty shape right there we need to actually take care of. There we go. Okay, so let's focus on this area now. Again, merging these shapes together so that all of our streets are one unified shape. All right, getting very close. Got a couple little bitty shapes on this this roundabout right here. Some of these little bitty slivers that are left over can be kind of challenging to get to combine. But if you zoom in far enough, you should be able to get those to merge again using that Shape Builder tool. And now our streets are all one shape. We can just grab that and move that. That's a filled object now. It's not stroked paths. Alright, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and come back over to my Layers panel. And let's go ahead and select everything on this layer. And I'm going to actually make a copy of this and drag it down to my terrain layer. So let me just hold down the Alt key and I'll drag that down to here. And I did that so that we still have an original copy of our roads on this roads layer. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that right now. What we're left with is this terrain layer. Looks like possibly we have a little bit of cleanup to do here. Looks like the roads don't quite match up with the terrain layer, but we can just simply drag a marquee around both those anchor points, snap them down using our smart guides into position. I may come in and clean the rest of these up here in between lessons, but I tell you what, let's go ahead and look at our reference image again. If you look at our reference image, you can see here that there are certain portions of our map that have sort of a color difference. Let me just go ahead and mark that template option here. You can see here that some of these portions are grass and some of these are pavement, and I'd like to go ahead and differentiate between some of these now. I tell you what, let's go ahead and lock that layer up again. Let's show our terrain layer. Now, if you're actually creating your map based on a realistic portion of a city, then you'd probably want to go and actually visit these areas, look and see where the different shapes are, and not rely on satellite imagery. But you know, for this lesson, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of roughly estimate where these grass areas are. So you know, I'm going to go ahead and probably call this a grass area right here. Call this a grass area right in here, maybe surrounding these buildings. So I'm going to come in and draw those in. Let me go ahead and show our buildings again so we can see those. And I tell you what, I want to go ahead and grab my rectangle tool and just go ahead and draw in a rectangle here. Now I'm going to go ahead and snap this and make this about the same size. Let me go ahead and just assign a green to that, a random green for right now. And I'm going to go ahead and send that backwards with a Control open bracket, so that's behind our roads. Might just stretch that out just a little bit more. And let me go ahead and hold down Alt and make a copy of that, and we're going to bring that up to here. And just kind of transform that so that it fits into this area as well. Now we've got a little grass area right in here. We'll drop that right about there. And you know, I might want to put one right around in this area too. So let me go ahead and just draw another rectangle in there. Alright, so I've created a few areas that are going to be a grassy area compared to some of these areas that are pavement. So I want to come in here now. I just noticed that we need to clean this area up right here with this leftover remnant of this path. So I tell you what, let me go ahead and just grab each one of these anchor points, hold down Shift and snap it right there to the boundary of our map. Smart guides can tend to pick up on some things that maybe you don't want them to pick up on, but with a little diligence you can actually get those exactly where you need those to be. Alright, so we've got everything in place. So in the next lesson, we're going to pick up where we're leaving off here, and we're going to continue building the terrain around our buildings.